English Language Arts. So grade 3, the crosswalk, English Language Arts and Reading. I'm on crosswalk, not. By the way, did you notice that worked that time? I don't know why. Did I see that? Did I do something different? Did you notice?
Just got
Yeah.
Yeah, just
I don't know why it worked that time. Worked at home, but it didn't work for me. But here's your instructional support tools. And if you go down. So here is an anchor standard. The standard itself is here. And then the Common Core standard. And then unpacking is over here. And so it's really hard to see, which is part of it. But number 1 says, read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. Cite specific textual evidence. And you're going to see that all through these standards. When writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from the text. So the CCSS standard reading literature is ask and answer questions to demonstrate understanding of a text, referring explicitly to the text as the basis for the answer. So when they unpack it, what does it look like for a 3rd grade student? A 3rd grade student continue asking and answering questions to show they understand a text, and they are required to refer to the text to support their answers. The genre of myths is added at this level, and students are asked to both retell and explain how key details communicate the message. So they even tell you, they're not really giving you, these are the skills per se, and they're not telling you exactly how to teach it, but what it will look like for a 3rd grade student. And they do suggest some questions. Use question and prompts such as, who are the characters in this story? What are the most important events that happened in the story? How do you know? What lessons is this story teaching you? But every time you ask one of those questions and get an answer, you would say, well, where do you see that? Why does it say that in the text? Show me. And especially when working with some kids in small groups, they're going to have to explain. But that's kind of what your unpacking looks like. It gives you the standard, then what's it going to look like for your grade student in that classroom?
So I have a question. So when we're doing our lesson plans and different things, we're looking at the unpacking standards as well as the overall standards. The unpackings are just examples.
Well, in the unpacking documents, you're going to have things like, you should be asking children these kinds of questions in order to get at these objectives. Does that make sense?
It kind of does. Is it similar to ESL standards like RETA, where they have examples, but they also have like, I don't know, this is, honestly to me this is confusing, so I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I'm trying to understand, looking at, because I've looked at Common Core since last semester, and then this is my first semester even hearing about unpacking, and so looking at that, it's very, very specific, very, very detailed, compared to looking at the essential standards, or the regular just math and English. So I'm wondering, when I'm writing my lesson plans and they say, what are your Common Core standards, and we're looking for things, I choose the Common Core standard, but the other...
You use the unpacking document, the way I would do it, to create a lesson plan.
Okay.
That's where that will be helpful.
Okay.
Your
So there's
essential
unpacking
question
for math and English?
They have unpacking documents for everything, every grade level.
The standards themselves will be too broad. There are sub-areas within that standard that they're expecting you to get that student to. So if you don't unpack it, you may miss some of those essential pieces they're looking for.
What is that? Where is the big standard thing?
It gives you a guide for what you're fixing to unpack. It's like the label on the box that comes in the mail. That label tells you who sent it and what it is. Then you open it to see what's actually in there, and it's going to be different than a broader piece.
All right, thank you.
And you're going to have to figure out, or what we're doing is, we make our teachers, if they're going to do it, they're kind of doing it together. So they're not doing it alone. And if you came into our county, some of that would be done for you as far as they're looking at the standards, combining them to make units, and saying, what are the essential questions? Have y'all looked at those? And looking at essential questions, what do the kids need to be able to answer to show that they do meet this standard? And so they've already, you may get somewhere where a lot of that's been done for you.
And that's a template that we're creating as in the process of curriculum mapping, so that a teacher looks on a sheet of paper and they see the learning objective, the essential question, they see parts of the unpacking document, that supports that particular objective or set of objectives. So we're going to have it all right there, so that they don't have 4 or 5 documents out on a desk trying to plan a lesson. So we're trying to make it a little easier for the teachers, but the thing is, the teachers are having to create it. Because it's one thing if I create it and hand it to them, and what we find in our system, and I'm sure lots of systems, that teachers don't buy into it if they haven't played a part in it. And so that is our hope, is that with this shift, with the change in practices, they're going to have a deeper understanding of what they have to do beginning in August, so that the children will be successful as a result of all the work we're doing right now, kind of behind the scenes things.
And that assessment and accountability piece is, if you just do the standard itself, you may miss what they're going to assess these kids on by not unpacking it. So you got to unpack it and make sure you cover the things they're going to be assessed on, which in turn indicates your effectiveness, which is where all this is headed. And you may well look at a standard and know some of the things that are coming, unpackings, to make sure you don't forget, don't leave out some of it.
Or if you're not exactly sure what you're even supposed to do. Like sometimes you could read an objective and not exactly even know what kind of questions you would ask children to ensure that they have learned that. That's where that piece comes in as a support, to give you some ideas. Did you want to say anything else, Michelle? I want to talk to you a little bit about the curriculum mapping process, and then we're going to end up the presentation today talking about assessments and what they have looked like for a long, long time and what they are going to look like. Because I will be honest with you, when all these conversations started, principals didn't get it, teachers didn't get it. We still have some teachers who haven't gotten it. But what I'm seeing happen is that when they are accessing some of these different assessments, they're coming to me saying, oh my goodness, this is different. And I said, I've been standing in front of you since last March talking about this. And they said, but Jennifer, we didn't realize it until we saw what children are going to have to be able to do, what they're going to have to be able to produce, how they're going to have to incorporate technology. It didn't exactly, the picture became a little clearer when we started seeing assessment examples. So we're going to talk just a minute about curriculum mapping. There are lots of tools out there that will be available. New ones are becoming available every day. Saw some things with Heidi Hayes-Jacobs. She is a curriculum mapping expert. She's doing some things. She's offering some tools online, different things. The one that we have decided to go with in Alexander is the Understanding by Design, the Jay McTighe and Grant Wiggins. And it is a backward approach. It's very, very different for our teachers. Because as far as our system, first of all, a lot of our teachers thought that a pacing guide was the curriculum map, and it's not. A pacing guide just tells you kind of how to pace your quarter or your 9 weeks, your unit, whatever. Gives you some resource ideas with how to teach lessons and how to create lesson plans, but it's not a curriculum map. So all of this has been a biggie for our teachers, and the big process for us begins February 20th. We will provide templates and different things to the team. We have a planning session planned for the curriculum mapping leaders on February 10th. And they still are not sure, because in the Understanding by Design model, there are 3 stages. And what we are finding is they want to rush through stages 1 and 2 to get to 3. And 3 is that stage where you actually plug in resources and things of that nature. Because what we're trying to avoid in Alexander, I don't want teachers to pull out a unit that they have done on apples for the past 10 years and take that unit and put the standards beside the unit and say, oh, well, that standard fits this part of my unit, and that standard fits this part of my unit, because guess what will happen if that is allowed? Their teaching practices won't change at all, because they're still going to teach that apples unit. So I must tell you, I'm overly ambitious. And when we were at Summer Institute, that thing that I showed you that started in July, boy, I thought we'd be so far ahead of where we really are in this process. So I've had to back off of it because our teachers are afraid. They're afraid of changing their practices. Some of them don't even know how to change practices. And as I said, if we start the school year in August with a pacing guide that's completed for 9 weeks in every subject, every grade level, I will be very, very pleased because we have a lot to accomplish between now and then to even make that happen. I want to talk to you just a little bit about assessments and some things that we have recently put our hands on. You will start hearing about the next generation of summative assessments, and that will be for grades 3 through 8 and high school. And if you're saying, well, you know, Jennifer, how are they different from what we're doing now? Well, they've told us they will be aligned to the new standard course of study, which is really what? Beginning next year, Common Core and Essential Standards. The students will have fewer test items, and in just a little bit you will see why. They're going to be at a much higher level. They're going to be aligned to college and career readiness. They're going to be involving things that happen in a student's everyday life, something that they might possibly relate to, those sorts of things. We have taught children to be pretty good test takers because for years and years and years, all they've had to do was pick A, B, C, or D. Well, there will be some multiple choice in all the new assessments, but that won't be the only thing they will do. They are going to have to use technology. They are going to have to use open-ended responses. They are going to have to demonstrate. It's amazing. And this is something, too, that's been a little bit, it's created anxiety in our system because the goal is by 2014-15, the majority of what we will do will be online. And we just don't think that we have the ability to do that. We know we don't have the ability right now because we've been doing some online field testing that really has not gone so well. You know, websites go down, just a variety of different things. But that is the goal, and we do know that that's what we're working toward. We won't have our typical pencil paper testing anymore. But they keep talking to us about the cloud or the instructional improvement system and the things that will be available to us. And initially I thought that they would be providing formative and benchmark assessments. We would just access those on cloud. Well, now they're saying, no, we won't provide any assessments. We will just provide tools to you that you all can create the assessments. So, you know, lots of things have changed as far as what we initially thought to what they're saying now, but whatever. This is the year we're in, 2011-12. We have tons of field tests that we are going to start administering very soon. Some of those will be pencil paper, some are online. Then 12-13, the summative assessment will be aligned as far as English Language Arts and Math to the Common Core and the North Carolina Essential Standards for Science. Those we understand will be the majority, we will have some options for online testing, but also we'll have pencil paper versions available, but then by 14-15, again, the majority will be online. And then here you will start hearing, or hopefully you've already started hearing, about smarter, balanced assessments. And we're going to talk to you about that some today. The first wave of testing in 12-13, that is next year, as I said, will be available pencil paper or online, and you see what we have here. Second wave, 14-15, as I said, the majority will be online. And then Teresa, if you hit the next slide. I want you to see what the children will do beginning 2012, and this will be for 2 years. This will get us through the 2012-13 year and the 2013-14 year.
Is this on your Alexander site too?
It's not yet. It is on the wiki, but it's not on our site yet. But this is a little tutorial you can go through, and you choose the test type. I'm going to do math because that's just me. You don't have to do anything else, but you log in and you all can do this. And the site is written up there if you just type it in. And there are sample questions. This is what they will see next year if they're doing it online. And on the first one, you notice there are no multiple choice answers. But it still can be graded very easily. They could put in an answer, and then, you know, what is the slope of the line graph? And you can notice, and I can tell you right now, here is not set up to do this. You have to set up certain things at your county so that all the graphs will show. This is one of the problems they had with field testing already, is that the whole thing won't show and kids can't figure out how to get it to show. They can review, they can go back, but once they answer, then they can end the test. It tells them how many they answered right. But you all can go there and look at some of those and what they'll look like in other areas. Now, they only have, they do not have the field test out yet for elementary 3, 4, and 5, but they do have other things.
What I want to say is the purpose of this is that they being the state, they're trying to transition us away from a multiple choice test. Some of what we'll be doing will be open-ended and different things, but I want you to see what 5th grade students have been doing. And what I mean by we've taught them to be pretty good test takers. This is an example from an old EOG of what a 5th grader would be asked to do on a math assessment. And it's easy. I mean, goodness sakes, you go through a couple of steps, but there you find that the answer's C. You mark C on your little answer sheet. You move on to the next problem, which is, again, an A, B, C, or D. Now, before you click this next one, this is a smarter balanced assessment example. It is not 5th grade, so please don't lose consciousness on me. Don't think, good grief, they're going to go from this little, you know, they earned $300, da-da-da, how much did Veronica earn? Please don't think they're going to go from that to the problem that I'm just about to show you. But this is just an example of how different assessments will look for our students by 2014-15. This then, can you even see it at all on any of the screens, becomes a test problem. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to read through that.
I don't think if they can read it. I can't, but I don't have my glasses on. They're younger than me, aren't they?
Not just math, it's comprehension and the reading itself.
Look how
Wait for what's to come. This is just part 1 of the problem.
What grade level is this?
8.
That's what I can only
We
find.
think it's 8.
We're pretty sure. Mr. Hope brought this back from DC tests.
There are some language arts ones that I found online for 8th grade. Just so you know.
Oh, yeah. There's
On the
also
Smarter Balanced website.
Yes.
Real life kinds of things that could actually happen in a home. Would you agree? Okay. Some information is given. Teresa, if you'll click to the next slide. Here we go. Here's where the fun begins.
Just the words here. Each sentence starts with assess, compare, explain, decide. Those are not words that were in those other problems, but they will be in these.
Okay, if you'll go to the last part of the problem.
Y'all did teach them in kindergarten how to use PowerPoint and all the Microsoft Office, Excel, and Publisher, because they're going to have to know how to use Publisher to do this problem.
They create a template.
Save it and then they
Upload it, yes.
And And just that in itself, right now, I don't know how many of our 8th graders would know how to upload something.
So like students are so used to, like this is 8th grade, you said, students are so used to what we just did. Isn't this gonna be like such a shock?
It's a shock for the teachers,
Well,
but
you
then
know-
for
I
parents.
can't
You know what
imagine.
I'm thinking about the shock to teachers, because this one gets their attention. Because they're like, oh, good Lord, I've been teaching them, you know, A, B, C, D, you automatically mark out 2 that it couldn't be, you narrow it down to the 2 that it might be, and then you pick the best one that's most likely. None of that here. Something else that will be very different for teachers is that we are used to administering assessments where they're given as much as up to 4 hours in a day to complete it. These new assessments could take 3 class periods or a week to complete. So do you see what I'm saying in the beginning when I was like talk the talk, that this is huge? It is a paradigm shift like nothing we have ever encountered before. So I'm sitting there as an administrative leader in our district thinking, whew, big changes for teachers, whew, big changes for children, whew, big changes for parents. Because listen, folks, that ABCD that we had up here for the 5th graders, we have parents who struggle with that. How in the world are we going to get them on board with some of this? So I'm automatically scrambling, thinking, good heavens, I'm way behind on PR. I should have been putting things out as far as on the TV, in the newspaper. I should have been communicating this beginning at the beginning of this school year instead of now trying to find some really quality stuff that I could copy on the front and back for parents to start preparing them for these changes. And then the community at large. It felt really great last week. I was sitting in Durham and an analyst stood in front of us and said, well, I've crunched some numbers on your 8th grade NAEP scores, which is the closest thing to Common Core essential standards that you've had so far. And my predictions are right. You'll have at least a 38-point drop in proficiency. So we weren't blowing the top out of it already with only 60-some% proficient. Then you take off 38 points of that. And can you see how many children it will be reported out to the public are actually proficient and at grade level? So the PR nightmare that goes on with some of this too, that I'm starting to think about.
And that starts in your classroom. If you can't go make really cool newsletters and pamphlets and all of those things, especially as an elementary teacher, you better go learn. If you can't keep your own website, every elementary teacher and well, every teacher in our county has their own website that they have to keep and maintain.
And what we're finding is, even in our most disadvantaged homes, it's amazing the technology that those families have available to them. The phone number may change every month, but it's funny, they have smartphones or they have Blackberries and you know, they have ways to access technology. So we are going to have to start utilizing, whether that's bring your own device, whatever it is, we're going to have to start thinking outside the box in order to enable our students to be successful. I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, but it's the 6 stages of change. And where are you right now? I'm way in stage 3. I suffer a lot of discomfort. I was actually up at 2:30 this morning thinking about how much I haven't done in our district, and I've been working like crazy since last March to make this a success. But we have teachers, a lot of those individuals and principals, it's not just teachers, they're in that red area. The good thing for you is that I think in the stages you're going to be farther along because we're not going to have to undo with you nearly as much as we're having to do with some of our veteran teachers.
But when you go in next year, be patient with the veteran teachers because they are going through huge changes. And if they're negative, just ignore them and go find the positive ones.